Okay, so we've got a number of you on the call. I can see we've got new clients, old clients, we've got some people who are not yet clients. So the purpose of the webinar really is just kind of a reintroduction into Protos. We've kind of gone through a little bit of a rebranding, we've got some new products, so we want to kind of share that with you guys. It is a kind of open session. I'll be in control of the chat. Darren will be doing some technical demonstrations for you, as you can see on the agenda. So please feel free, pop any questions into the chat and I'll try and answer them as we're going through. Or if there's something that Darren's showing you and feel it's pertinent, you know, we can jump in and we'll try and make it as live as interactive. So if everyone's happy with that,
yeah.
Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, it's just worth noticing that today everything is going to be at quite a high level. However, the topics that we're going to cover today and some of the things we're going to cover today are going to set the tone for a series of webinars that are coming up. So some of it might be pertinent to you, some of it might not. However, over the next few months, we are going to deeper dive into some of these things. For example, Cyber Essentials, usually about January, February, we get an update from the NCSC and then we'll pass that out to you. But we will be diving deeper into things. So if you see things at a very high level today that flag your interest, we can, we could take that offline, or we will be bringing this up in a webinar at a later date.
Brilliant. Okay, so let's start off with a bit of a company update from Protos. As you can see there, there's a few highlights. I'll just kind of run through these. These are kind of our picks. So most recently, we're very happy that we won the West Cheshire and North Wales Business of the Year award. Obviously very prestigious, premier award of the night, and you know, it just represents all the hard work and everything that we're doing here. Another big milestone for us is achieving our ISO 27001. So that's actually our UCAS accredited, and that's actually covering the NOC, SOC and whole business. It's just not parts. So we've really got into that. Poor Daz lost 12 months of his life getting the company ready and through. But a big testament to the team and the staff for really taking that on board. So we've really tightened things up there. So we are running to that standard now. We've had a complete portfolio review. Darren's going to touch on a couple of new products that we've got in, so I won't delve too much on that. As you're all aware, hopefully you're following us on the socials, on LinkedIn. The team has actually gone through quite significant growth. Now, it's not just in one area, that's across all teams. So our NOC, our SOC, they're now both running 24/7. The sales team and operations team are growing. So we're just getting bigger and bigger. And then the pen testers, which I'm getting to. And then finally, our Crest and Check. So we've got a great team here, which is growing at pen testers, which are Crest accredited. And what we are looking to do in the next 12 months is actually achieve our Check. So our clients are on the call who have had Check previously. You know what's involved in that. Protos is going to be able to hopefully help you deliver that in the future. So yeah, big 12 months for us. On top of all that, you might have noticed we've had a bit of a rebrand. We've got a brand new website, a new look, and we're just kind of going to bring you all those updates over the next 40 minutes or so.
I think it's worth adding to that, you know, some of you on the call, you might have dealt with us just for your Cyber Essentials, and some of the stuff today that we cover, you might not know that we do. So that's another reason why we wanted to do this update today. And just at a high level, Protos, so we are, we're an enterprise network security company, and we're a cybersecurity company in terms of defences and offensive security, and we don't really stray outside of those lanes. So later on, I will be touching on a lot of things that go into the Microsoft world, and especially around Azure and Microsoft 365 and things like that. We're not a Microsoft partner, but we have got a massive community of Microsoft partners in specialized areas and things like that. So that's just a brief update on what we're going to do. So I'm going to start off with Cyber Essentials, which is where a lot of customers know us from, because we do hundreds and hundreds of Cyber Essentials, and mainly Cyber Essentials Plus every year. So I'm just going to start off on some updates and tips. So on this then, the current standard Montpellier, it has been running for a while, and I think we did a webinar earlier this year which kind of covered, there weren't that many changes in it this year. Obviously last year we did a series of webinars. There were some major significant changes in the Cyber Essentials schemes things like cloud applications, multi-factor and things like that. But just a few changes this year, and just a few things that we're noticing with clients that we just need to bring to your attention again, common issues that we're seeing and things like that. The first one is the router and firewall firmware. Now that's now checked. So you might tell us I've got a Fortinet, firewall or a Cisco Firepower 1010 or whatever it is. You need to make sure that the firmware on that is up to date, and you need to report that. So that's something that we're seeing a lot of now. And we're also seeing businesses that aren't updating their firewall for years and years and years. And in the past 2-3 years, we know every vendor has had a critical vulnerability in their firewalls. That's from the lower end, from Draytech, all the way up to Fortinet, Palo Alto. They've all had vulnerabilities in like the in their VPN services and things like that. So it is critical that you're updating your firewalls and updating the firmware on them. Something that has been mentioned, but people haven't been aware of, is when you get to Cyber Essentials Plus. Again, obviously today I'm not covering what Cyber Essentials is. I'm hoping that a few of you know. If you do need any clarification or you want to find out more, contact us after this or put your questions in the chat. But for those of you, and a lot of you on the call do go through Cyber Essentials Basic and Plus with us, in the new standard, we have to test a sample of all servers that you have. In the old world, it'd just be servers that gave RDP or Citrix access or something like that. Now we have to test a sample of all servers. And this is catching people out, because they're potentially not keeping their servers and especially the other software on them up to date. And the biggest thing that we're finding is unsupported versions of Microsoft SQL. I don't do as many CE Plus assessments as I used to, but in the ones I've done this year, I've found this quite a few times myself, and obviously Gareth and Luke, our other assessors, they're finding this quite often. And people are saying, well, you've never found this before, and that's because previously we haven't had to test servers. Now, in your Cyber Essentials Basic, you should be telling us if you've got unsupported software in your environment. So actually, this isn't a new requirement. We're just testing what you should have told us already. So knowing what versions of Microsoft SQL you've got is absolutely key. When we're testing servers and things like that, is holding people out. It is holding people back on their assessments. There have also been some recent changes to supported software, and I'll cover that shortly. Windows servers, again, we've got a lot of assessments on hold at the minute because people have missed the deadline with some of that, but I'll cover that shortly. A few tips then that we're seeing this year that will help you. So, a lot of organisations now are getting their endpoints into Intune. We use Intune. Most of our customers use Intune. Some are still on, Active Directory, but they are going, hybrid into that. Many of the new controls, for example, enforcing 6-character pins, software update rings, disabling autoplay, things like that. All of this can be pushed from Intune. As part of your engagement, if you use Intune and you want to apply these controls, just let us know. Me and my team, we can advise on it. As I said, we're not a Microsoft partner, but we know how to configure the Intune controls and things like that. We've got them configured ourselves. And likewise, if you're one of our Microsoft partners that are on the call, and you want to just touch base with us and we can go over that. This means that when you deploy your machines, via autopilot or whatever it is, they're pretty much at the standard already from the minute they're rolled out. So use Intune where you can, because it's great, and you can apply a lot of the Cyber Essentials controls. If you're going for Cyber Essentials Plus, this is something I bang on every Cyber Essentials webinar. Try and get your machines to the same build. The reason being, we are now starting, because Cyber Essentials has been, some assessments have been taking us longer than they should have. We ask for this information now during our scoping, as many of you may know. Now, if your builds are, you've got loads of different builds, and I'll cover what they are shortly, the sample size for us goes up massively. And that might mean that your assessment in our quote to you, instead of being a day audit, it might be 2 or 3 days. And obviously that's going to increase the cost. It's also going to increase the time for us. When actually, you could save that cost just by making sure all of your windows are on Windows 10, 22H2, for example, and I'll cover that shortly. Getting a handle on this will be key. And this is a thing that slows a lot of assessments down, is where machines fall behind on their build, and it's taking more and more time to get them through it. Servers then, I'll go back to that. Carry out a pre-scan of your server estate. So if you've got less than 16 devices, shouldn't be telling you this as a Tenable partner, but you can go and get a free version of Nessus Essentials. You can go and get this, set it up yourself and carry out those scans on your servers. So you could uncover Microsoft SQL and all those things. So if we do pick one of those servers during the Cyber Essentials Plus audit, you've already scanned it, you've already patched it, and anything we might find might just be a new vulnerability or something like that. Alternatively, if you wanted to, look at putting your own vulnerability software in, we're a Tenable partner. We can supply you with Tenable and Nessus. They're the tools that we use for the vulnerability scan. So, you could put that in. We could configure it for you, so you're scanning ahead of us coming in. And again, just makes the whole process much easier, and you're keeping on top of your vulnerabilities as well. So they're just a few tips from what we've been seeing, in the past few months. Next 3 slides then, I'm just going to go quickly over what is currently acceptable for Cyber Essentials and some of the changes. So Windows then. Windows 10 still supported. Windows 10 version 22H2 for Pro and Home. 22H2 for Enterprise and Education, and 21H2 is still supported up until June 24. Most of you here are on Pro, apart from our education customers. If you're on Windows 10, you need to get up to 22H2. If you're on Pro, nothing else is supported there. Windows 11, 22H2, and again, pretty much the same. 21H2 is going end of life June 24 for Windows 10 and October 24 for Windows 11. So just, we're moving to where there's generally going to be only, 1 or 2 acceptable builds anyway. So that should make things a bit easier, make life a bit easier for you. Windows Server is the big one I wanted to point out today. We have got so many Cyber Essentials Plus audits on hold and Basic on hold at the moment because Windows 2012 went end of life and it's passed a lot of people by. Now, this seems to have impacted people more than the end of 2008 did. And I don't know why it is. I don't know if people got to do more work or Microsoft just didn't announce it enough. But it's catching a hell of a lot of customers out and it is causing us delays in assessments, and getting through. You can get extended support on that until October 2026. Obviously, there's cost associated to that, or you do need to upgrade there. Now, for Server 2008, when you could buy extended support for that, for on-premises servers, that's gone end of life now. But just to make you aware, if you've got extended support on 2008 servers in Azure, that goes end of life on January the 9th. So just be aware that this is catching people out. And people often don't even know that they've got these servers in their environment. I've done some work with a client and I've uncovered that there's an old Exchange server on the network that's not even used anymore, or there's an old file storage or something like that, a project has then kicked off the back. It's completely past IT managers by. That's Windows then. Apple, there's a new version of macOS 14 Sonoma that was released in October. And in September, iOS 17 was released. So the current versions that are supported now are macOS 14 Sonoma, Ventura, and Monterey, 12, 13, and 14. For your iPhones and iPads, iOS 15, 16, and 17 are supported. Big Sur is no longer supported. So if you're on Big Sur, you need to move up from that. Quite straightforward with Apple. Android, a little bit more then to it. Android 14 was released in October, so if your devices can go up to Android 14, go up. Current supported are 11, 12, 13 and 14. We're waiting on a bulletin for 11, so if you are buying new handsets, I'd recommend, if they can only go up to 11, probably look for something else. As you may know, with Cyber Essentials, with iPhones, it's quite easy because for example, iOS 16, any handset that can only go up to that, the handset falls off with the iOS, basically. With Android, it's slightly different. When you give us your list of assets for Cyber Essentials, we need to check the handset or the tablet is still supported by the manufacturer, whoever that is, Huawei, Samsung, everyone else who uses Android in the world. We can assist with this. It's often hard to know where to go to see if the handset is supported. We've got a knowledge base we can't share with our clients. It's between us and IASME, but if you need to, come to us and we can assist with that if you're unsure on your Android estate and you're a Cyber Essentials customer. Okay, so that's Cyber Essentials then. Was there any questions on that? Should we leave them to the end?
There's no questions currently, but if you do have any questions on that, pop them in, and as Darren said, we can kind of review or do a roundup at the end.
So, as Damien said near the start, this year we've been doing a complete review on everything that Protos does as a business, where we're going, a few internal changes, things like that. One of the key things was our 24/7 Security Operations Centre that we've got here, and how we protect our clients. So, we went to market for a new endpoint security solution. The reason being is our SOC, when you come on our SOC service, you can bring whatever you like to the party, whatever your IT infrastructure looks like. And that includes servers, Office 365, vendor you use. We have over 600 integrations where we can monitor your entire IT environment. We were looking for a way, however, when people bring their legacy antiviruses and some AVs to us, often it can prove challenging for us. For example, and I'm not going to name names, I'm not going to badmouth other products today, but there are certain products that many customers bring, and it will tell us there's been a malware infection on a machine, and that's it. It won't give us any more information. It'll just tell us, and then it'll say it hasn't cleaned it up. And our SOC team have to work with that, and it's very difficult for them. So we needed a solution that we can bolt onto our SOC offering, or even have as a standalone solution for some of our smaller managed service customers that can, monitor endpoints, react to threats, and enable us to do that incident response faster for you. So we went down to InfoSec in London. We had a great time, but there was a serious element to that. We looked at them all. We've looked at Microsoft Defender. We've looked at SentinelOne. We've looked at, I can't remember, we looked at a hell of a lot. We came down to two. It was SentinelOne and CrowdStrike, and we ended up on CrowdStrike. Now, I'm not going to go into the features of it, because any, the IT managers and things like that, you go on any website of these vendors, they all say they do machine learning, they do AI, and they're a next-gen antivirus, all that stuff. So let's say that is a given, in this EDR space. Why did we like this? Why did we go for this? So, we evaluated multiple EDR vendors, and there are some good ones out there, and this was, some of my team, they were like kids in a candy store, in that they wanted one week, one the other, and as some of the customers on the call might know, we were yet to decide on this and where we go, and obviously it's a big change internally for us to integrate it with all of our other systems. So they went through technical testing by our SOC team, not just our SOC team. Our pen testers also put some of these through the ringer. So, creating malicious files, trying to bypass the EDR and all that good stuff. So we really put them all through their paces. One of the key things, and I'm going to demo this in a minute, is the rapid response actions. So to integrate with our SOC, or, and integrate with our team, if we get an alarm, how quickly can we react to that alarm? How quickly can we isolate a computer that we think is infected? And can we get on it and kill a process, or do a forensic investigation, or whatever that looks like? That's something I'm going to demo in a minute if the demo works. But that was a critical element. Other things we can do then: device USB control. So if you want to block USB, network attached cameras, I don't know, you name it, we can do that from the solution. And also vulnerability management. So obviously we've got our vulnerability management platform, with Tenable and Nessus, but to roll that into CrowdStrike EDR is something critical we're going to be looking at as well. So, we can report on the vulnerabilities that there are in your environment. We can look at your risk factors. You might have 30 machines on your network with a critical Microsoft vulnerability that was announced last week, for example, and that data will be critical in us telling you need to patch these machines quickly. So that's why we did it. So I'm just going to go into a demo. I'm just going to make sure it's all set up. So we've had to trigger a load of alarms and all that. I've had one of my pen testers getting up to no good. So I'm just going to make sure it works before I come back to you. So I'll just leave you in Damien's hands for a second, just while I make sure this is all
sounds ominous. Anyone got any questions or anything so far about anything that Dan's done? Just pop it straight into the chat.
Okay, it's all looking good.
We're all very quiet.
That's good. Well, okay. Okay, so coming back in a minute, it's all looking good. So hopefully this should. Again, I'm not going to go too deep into things. I just want to show you what it looks like when we receive an alert or an alarm. So just before the call started, one of my pen testers, Luke, who some of you might know.
Can we just check that everyone can see that screen now? We're resharing again. I just want to make sure that everyone can see that. And if people just put a little thumbs up or just say yes, we can see the screen. Yeah. Cheers, Dan. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay.
Good to know.
So those of you know Luke, one of our lead pen testers, he's always up to no good. He's always setting off SOC alarms for the guys, but this one I asked him to do. So just before the call, I asked him to just to trigger some malicious. It was a malicious payload basically, and then trigger a load of SOC alarms and that. So just a little peek behind the curtains then. This is just one of our systems. So we use WebEx internally and PagerDuty, you know, to send anything that's high or medium straight to the on-duty SOC analyst and then escalate. So a little bit behind the scenes here. This is what happens here at Protos. So we've had a system compromise, you know, malware infection, you know, this is a high urgency alarm. So this triggered. It calls the on-duty, also calls the on-duty manager, you know, the SOC manager here at Protos. So that's what we got. Then we would obviously pivot into our SOC tool. Sorry, my screens are the wrong way around. Where we can see, now obviously I'm not demoing this platform today, but again, just a little peek behind the curtain. Why can't I see that? What's going on? Let me zoom out. Right, okay. So, you know, we will see this in our SOC system. You know, obviously we monitor multiple customers via this, but this is just our own environment. And then we can go into here and see that we've had malware infection, and we can see all of the information on this, what's happened, how it was detected, which machine it was on, and all this. Now, this platform here is our own SOC service. So this isn't CrowdStrike, but this is what it feeds into, and this is where we'd also be monitoring Microsoft 365. I don't know if you brought Sophos to the party, or Microsoft Defender, or Fortinet firewalls, Cisco Umbrella, all the other stuff that we do. This is where we monitor it all from this central environment. But in this instance, we've had malware here. What we can do from here, straight away, we can say, right, this looks like malware. Before I even jump into the CrowdStrike platform, before I even start doing any investigation, I might want to just isolate this machine. This wasn't ransomware, but if this was ransomware that could be spread easily over a network and to backups and things like that, we want to get this machine off the network as soon as possible and then carry out our investigations. And we can do that from here. So we can select multiple actions from our own environment here. So again, a little peek behind the screen. So what we are going to do is run a CrowdStrike action to isolate this device. However, it doesn't really matter. It depends what type of alarm, but we could run an Office 365 action on disabling a certain user in Office 365. We're not going to do that in this case. Cisco Umbrella, you know, clients who use that, we could block a domain if it hadn't already been flagged by Umbrella. We could block someone in Duo, something like that. But in this scenario, I'm not gonna run it because Luke's working, but I could contain the host. I could contain his machine here, run that, and you know this happens instantaneously. It will isolate Luke's machine, and then I know that potentially the attackers aren't able to pivot and move within our network to other machines in the network. So once I've done that, I can then go and carry out any investigation work that I need to do. And this is where I drop usually into the CrowdStrike portal. And what you can see here, there's a lot more to this, and we are going to go into it in another webinar with CrowdStrike at a later date. But this is at a very high level. One of the reasons we love this is we can see all of the processes, you know, in a really good graph here. You know, it would show you not a lot going on here. Basically, what Luke did is he created a malicious payload in his pen testing machine, moved it to his machine and launched it. Now we've got this in block mode, so it's blocked it. However, if we had it in audit mode, you can monitor, what it does and things like that. And we will demo that on a later webinar. Now, down the right here, we can see a hell of a lot of information on what was launched, where it was launched from, the user details and things like that. And some of you on this call who, use some other antiviruses that you moan at us about, and you're locked into a contract for that, you can see the information you get here is a hell of a lot more than you do get with some other solutions. So that's really great. We can do that. Now, because we haven't isolated the machine in this instance, we can also contain it from here if we wanted to, but we're not going to do that. We can assign it to an engineer. We can add comments to it. We can manage the case in here as well. One of the key things that is good for us is that we can now connect to the host. So hopefully he's still online. He's not off skiving. So I can connect to his host machine, and he can be isolated, but we can still talk to CrowdStrike. So we can run all kinds of scripts in here, and then we can start running all kinds of commands. So, if we want to see, what IP communications are happening on his system, we can do that. If there was a malicious process running, we could kill that process straight away. We could transfer forensic software over the network, to access it. We can kill stuff, as we said. We can find out more about this machine. All of this stuff that we can do in there. We can dump the complete memory and all of this stuff. These are just some of the network communications that we're seeing on that device. So as you can see, I'm not going to go too deep into that because I need to move on. I could talk about this all day. But that's the level of response that we are able to do there. And that gives us so much more capability in the event of a response, than previous legacy antiviruses and anti-malware have had there. So I'll end it there, but that's what we could do. We could clean that up, hopefully, contain the device, and that's gone. Now, obviously this, for our big SOC customers, if you like, you've got the SIEM, 24/7 monitoring and all of that good stuff. This can be bolted on to your agreement. For our smaller managed service clients, who have like a SOC Lite with us, most of you, we've already started moving over. If we haven't, we'll be in touch certainly to move you over. But you could just have this as a managed service from us, so managed detection and response, and you still get our SOC, and you can have that 24/7 if you just wanted the endpoint monitoring. So, if it's something you're interested in, do let us know. Right, let me go back to my webinar. Okay. There we go. Okay, so I just wanted to cover off then. So that's some of what's going on our blue team, if you like, on our defensive side. Our red team side. It astonishes me that we've been doing this for years. People still don't, they do now. They know more and more that we do pen testing. It was part of the reason we got the new website developed and all of that good stuff. So some of our penetration testing services, a lot of investment has gone into this and into the team in the past year and a half. So we can start widening this and delivering it more and more to you. So our pen testers are Crest and CyberScheme accredited. Teams growing. I was interviewing all last week for new testers. It's really critical, and we really want to be, like we have been with our network security, like we have been at SOC, at the forefront of testing. So, our team are going into organisations and running internal pen tests where some of the big pen testing houses have done 5 previous pen tests and were, over 5 years previously, and we're uncovering vulnerabilities that are there in Windows Active Directory that they haven't even tested for previously, which astounds me because, you'd think they'd be doing their job right. But our testers are uncovering this stuff, so I'm really proud of the work that the team's doing, and they're doing some really great stuff at the moment. So there's different types of pen tests that we can do for you. So we can do an external one. So, if you are a little bit worried about, what's open on my firewalls, on my cloud environment and things like that, we can do an external pen test for you. Sometimes this might be a compliance requirement, and we can look at, VPN services and, remote desktop, anything that's open to the outside world. We also conduct web application penetration testing services. So, against your website, if you're concerned about vulnerabilities on your website, things like WordPress, or you're creating a new web application that's open on your network and you want us to test it before someone potentially breaks in that way. So, that's something that we do. And as part of that, we can also include a phishing simulation test and go after your Microsoft 365 as well as like your VPN logins and things like that. So we could try and phish your users, get their password, and then see what we could do with their password. What we also offer, and I'm not going to lie, the pen testing team will fight each other to get on these because they're great fun. If you come to us and said, I've got an Active Directory domain, I've got 100, 200 endpoints on it, whatever it is. We've never had an internal pen test. 9 times out of 10, we will go in and there will be certain vulnerabilities inherent in Active Directory domains that we will find, and on the majority of those occasions, we will be able to get all the way up to domain and enterprise admin just by exploiting things that are naturally there in an AD environment. And this is why the team love it, because it's good for them, it's good fun. It's skills that they don't get to use every day, but when they do, they learn on every pen test. It's great. And from there, we get domain admin. What we can do is we can dump all of your password hashes, all of those, not quite encrypted, but all of those obfuscated passwords. And then we've got a password cracking rig here in the office that we spend quite a lot of money on that we like to use. So we can take all of those passwords, bring them back here and try and crack them and see what the caliber and the quality of those passwords are like. Also, we can discover legacy services or legacy systems on your network. For example, one penetration test we ran last year, we got to the last day, we weren't getting everywhere, they were solid, they were really, really good, the client, they'd really locked everything down. I think because they'd seen one of our obfuscated reports previously, they'd got ahead of us, but that was good. But then on the last day, we discovered a legacy vulnerability in an old printer, we exploited it, and we got the domain admin password because it was set to share to SMB shares with a domain admin. So that's the sort of thing we'd be looking for. And the reason for that is, yes, we can test from the outside, but there's always a risk that an attacker could have a foothold on the inside. Those of you that are open to the public, you might be an amusement park or you might be a retail store or something like that, an attacker could potentially get into your offices or get into your environment and just connect to the network and go from there. And then more and more, we're starting to do cloud security assessments. So that could be assessments of Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, testing of Microsoft 365, configuration reviews. And over the next 12 months, obviously we've got Crest and Check and all that. We've got some quite cool things planned here amongst the team where we're going to have some new offerings around Microsoft 365 and Azure in particular, because that's where the majority of our clients are moving to. So we need to adapt as a security testing company as well. Okay, so that's covered the bits of Protos from a Cyber Essentials perspective, from a blue team defensive perspective, a red team and an offensive perspective. I just want to cover a couple of innovations in network security then, because Protos Networks, we're a network company. Primarily, a lot of our network security solutions are based around Cisco, and the two things I'm going to talk about now are around Cisco. Now, again, these are very high level. We just want to bring your attention to them, especially if you are one of our existing Cisco customers. However, the network access control thing, your network could be HP, it could be Juniper, it could be anything. But we can integrate with it, and it's quite cool. So again, if you don't understand what we're going on about here, we can follow up. It might not even be applicable to your organisation per se, if you're a bit of a smaller organisation. But these are very exciting things we are going to deep dive on, and we have started to put into production for ourselves and some of our clients. So the first one is a solution called Cisco Plus Secure Connect. So those of you, and we have got quite a lot, who are Cisco Meraki and Cisco Umbrella customers, they're starting to converge now, and Cisco Umbrella as a solution won't exist in a few years. It's all becoming one big fabric, if you like. And SASE, it's all over our website. We have done some webinars on it in the past, and we will in the future. Again, I could go on about this for hours and hours. If you want to know more, we could probably set up a separate deep dive. The reason for this is, and part of the reason we started Protos, is we saw the network industry and the cybersecurity industry just starting to merge, starting to get closer and closer and closer together. And SASE is a perfect example of this and where we're going. So especially since the pandemic, customers are moving to hybrid workforce. They're at home 3 days a week. But also, even our larger clients now are starting to use their offices like internet cafes. And the amount of times I've had IT infrastructure managers sit in meetings and say, we want to move to an internet cafe type infrastructure where you pretty much just connect to our network in the office. There's no on-premise servers and all that, and then you can go and work from whatever office that they want. We need to make sure that while we're doing that, they're at home, they're in an office, they're in a branch office or whatever it is, they're in Starbucks. A consistent security policy is applied, the same security controls to reduce those risks, as our users could be anywhere. And on top of that, we need to ensure a good user experience no matter where they are. So, this is very high level, but what Cisco and other network security vendors are now starting to do is create a fabric. So if you think, those of you who've got firewalls and VPNs on premise, we're really moving those services off the firewall and into the cloud. And basically then you would still have a firewall and network equipment, but that would connect to the fabric. So, where we say internet cafe, you'd put, for example, if we're talking about Cisco Meraki, you'd put some of that Cisco Meraki infrastructure in, but then you tunnel your traffic up to the fabric. If your users are at home, they connect to the fabric wherever they are. They're in an airport, they're in a home office, wherever it is. When they connect to that fabric, we're going to authenticate them to make sure we know who they are. And this could use whatever authentication mechanism, single sign-on, whatever it is that your organization uses. Microsoft, majority of people use. Cisco Duo single sign-on. Could be Okta, Jump Cloud, something like that. Anything that your organization uses to get into your apps, you will use to connect to the fabric. And then it doesn't matter then where your users are going. If they're going to the internet or if they're going to your internal applications, you don't need to build that network infrastructure anymore. Cisco will do it for you on the back end. So if your users sat at home, they want to get to an internal database server that you have. In the old world, they'd VPN in or they'd RDP in and then they'd use a jump box to get on. That's no longer the case. You won't need to use a remote access VPN anymore. We publish an external URL and then it will look at your computer, it will build a tunnel itself, it will make sure you're authenticated, that the user is who they say they are, use biometrics to then connect you to the app. You can also then open that app up to contractors and people like that. So if you have a third party, a developer or someone like that, who needs access to your internal applications, you can just open that up to them and then make sure that they've gone through their multi-factor authentication, that the device is secure and all of this stuff. So it really helps with that supply chain security. But, those of us who don't have internal applications and we don't need a VPN, we still need to control where our users are going to, their on-ramp to the internet, whatever that looks like. And we need to make sure we're securing that. So, we can do things, for example, allow downloads from Dropbox, but not allow uploads. For example, we can apply controls to your Microsoft 365 tenancy so they can only access your tenancy and no one else's. We can do those really granular controls. And we can be looking at everything, all of the data that's flowing up to the cloud, and applying security controls on that. Traditionally, a lot of this would have been done on a big, hefty, thousands of pounds spent on a firewall. It's all shifting up to the cloud now. And obviously Cisco are our vendor of solution, our vendor of choice here. They're investing a hell of a lot in this. They're building new data centers. There's a new data center going up in Manchester and things like that to really make sure that this solution is robust and fast enough, to support all of our workloads. Damien and I went to an event in Manchester about this, and some of the things coming down the line are really cool. So eventually, where we'll get to is if you're at home and you're sat on, let's say you sit in the garden, it's a nice sunny day, having a cup of tea in the garden, and you're having trouble getting to an application, the user agent, the SASE agent, if you like, will pop up in the right-hand side of your screen and say, actually, your performance is poor because you're too far from your wireless router. Move closer to your wireless router, and it'll give you a smiley face as you move closer and things like that. And this is where the network and the security side are starting to converge. Again, I'll move on now, but I could talk all day about this, but we are going to do a deeper dive about this because this really is the future of where network security is going. And yes, IT managers are starting to look at this now, and some are starting to implement this. But over the next 5 years, you're going to hear more and more and more about this. And we've been banging this drum for ages, to move to that. So that's SASE. The next one, and this is something that has been quite niche for some of our customers, but we're starting to do this more and more and more. So those of you with reasonable sized networks, you might have worked with us on network access control. So this is where we put something at the heart of your networks, and it will, control what devices can connect to the network, authenticate users, and then apply a network policy to that. And our solution is Cisco Identity Services Engine. Now, what that can do is, wireless users, we can authenticate them, their machine, whatever that may be. Wired users, sorry, I've got them the wrong way around. Wired users who are, I've got them the wrong way around, sorry. They come in via switches, but also things like CCTV cameras, printers, all of this good stuff as well, that all comes in. Wireless users, users who are connecting over your wireless network, wherever they are, guest users, BYOD, all of that stuff. And then VPN users. Cisco ICE is a centralized brain, if you like, of your network that can just block someone if you don't know who they are, from connecting to your wireless, connecting to your switches. Traditionally, these solutions, and I've worked on multiple of these, over the years, they've always been had to be hosted on big, beefy servers on premises. Last year, Cisco started to make these available on the Azure and the AWS marketplace, and these have really matured over the years. Now, we've started deploying this in anger for quite a few clients now, where we will, they've got an Azure environment, they've connected their network up to it, and now they want to start rolling out some kind of network access control. We deploy it from the Azure marketplace, and one of the great things we can do now is customers who are getting rid of Active Directory or don't even have Active Directory but want to apply granular controls, we can REST API this now to Azure AD or Entra ID or whatever Microsoft want to call it next week. We're going to connect to that, and then we can do lookups into your users and your groups, and then apply policy on that. Another critical function that all usually required on Active Directory and things like that was certificate services. We partnered with a company in Germany. I can't remember, they're massive, got a massive German name, but we partnered with them, and we can now, just from your Azure environment, is create your own public key infrastructure. So if you wanted to do certificate-based authentication through your Azure environment, we can enroll, create you your own PKI, and do all of that from Intune. So as you can see here, we can deploy it in AWS. But as I said, there is a certain Microsoft flavor today to this. And we've got a lot of customers who've gone all in on Azure, Intune, and all of that stuff. But they've still got a reasonable size Cisco network or a HP network or anything, any network vendor, we can integrate with them all. If you wanted to start looking at really securing your network access, we can do this now totally in the cloud without any infrastructure on-premise or any hardware. And some of the use cases of this, that we're starting to use now, if we have an Azure AD group that's called IT, we could apply a policy to the network that's unrestricted, so there's no content filtering, no bandwidth filtering, anything like that, and put them in a VLAN 100. If the Azure AD group was contractors and the user was in the contractors group, we could limit their access, only limit them to certain servers or things like that, or create a policy just for them and put them into VLAN 200. For our education clients, if there is a AD group called student, and you know, some of you who are on this call who are our education customers, you will know we've done this in AD where we've applied stricter controls to a year 7 group than we have a 6th form group, but we can apply a content filter in and then a VLAN to that. We might have a group called bandwidth of users, you know, people who are just hammering our downloads and things like that, and we can maybe apply a policy integrating with Meraki and things like that that could limit them to 1 megabit per second. Other use cases we can do then, you know, even if you're just a cloud-based company with an on-premise network, CCTV cameras, printers, all of that stuff, we could put the MAC address in and we could authenticate them that way. So the MAC address is a CCTV camera, we put them in the CCTV policy and network. Some of the other things we can do is posturing clients. So, you know, before they connect to the network, and this is all part of that zero trust stuff, we could run a check on that device and say, is it running antivirus? Is it software up to date? All of this stuff. If its antivirus is disabled, we'll quarantine it, and they're not allowed on the network until they re-enable their antivirus. That's one use case. Another one is profiling. So, you know, if you've got hundreds and hundreds of IoT devices and you don't want to add the MAC addresses into the system, we can profile it. And if we say, right, the system will do a load of checks on the device and say, is this, you know, this looks like a Canon printer. If it is, then put it in the printer's policy. And then an IT admin doesn't have to go around and add all those MAC addresses. So they're just 2 use cases that Cisco ICE has been around for years and years and years. But this new moving it to the cloud and integrating it with your cloud resources is critical. And I think it's going to unlock a lot of potential for some of our customers who are primarily cloud-based. So I'll stop there. That was a whistle-stop tour. I could have talked for hours and hours and hours. But open the floor to any questions that we've got, any that have come in, or anything else you want to see. As I said, over the next 6 months, we will be doing deeper dives into everything I've shown you today.
Okay, so it's all quiet on the Western Front, okay. So either no one's got any questions or your explanation was absolutely perfect. Everyone's got everything.
Or I bored them all.
No, they're all still there.
Yeah.
So they're all still there. Has anyone got any questions? Anything? No, it doesn't look like we have. What I have done while Darren has been going through the presentation, I've just put links to the services and solutions that he mentions just in the chat there. So please feel free. Oh, thank you, Ian. Ian's just fed back. Crack and talk. Need to get some times in. Okay. So thank you very much. Yeah, no questions, but a lot to take in, Kevin. So yeah, our new website, all the links are there. So we'll go through that. As Darren's mentioned, this is the first in a series of deeper dives. If there is anything you want to see, or you know you've got any suggestions in terms of the webinar, we will go through them. What I will do, I'll kind of close out a little bit, but what we have started doing is sending out our monthly threat roundups, our newsletters, and obviously these invites for the webinar. So I would just ask you to double check your emails because there's a lot of great content now going out from Protos, and we can do that. Going back to the presentation today, any of the products or the solutions that you've seen, Darren's already mentioned, we will do a deeper dive for you. So like some of you are mentioning, yeah, just get in touch and we'll get that deeper dive in. Secondly, we can do proof of concepts, trials, demos. Let's get them in your environment. Let's get them playing. Let's see if you can get a use case that we've not mentioned. So happy to interact it in that way. Anything else from you?
No.
No? Brilliant. Okay, well, what we'll do then, we'll give you 6 minutes back. Go make yourself a brew. Thank you very much for staying on. We will be sending the slides out and the recording, so you can kind of go back over it as well. But yeah, thank you very much from me, and thank you from Darren and the team at Protos for your continued support, and we look forward to bringing you some more content. Cheers, everybody.
Bye-bye.